looks like from what I noticed here is they're going to guarantee Kirk Cousins $10 million on a roster bonus that's due in 2026 by keeping him around. Based on some of Kirk Cousins' stats from last year, I wasn't very impressed with his ability to be able to get the Falcons to where they needed to be. He was the type of quarterback that he played one game really well, then he played the other game either average or horrible, and then he played the other game just completely down into the tank. So I was thinking since the Falcons.
So by the time you look at his stats by the end of the season, he's very mid-par of a player.
Subpar to me, because if you look at his yards, he threw for 3,500 yards plus. He threw 18 TDs. He threw 16 interceptions, and he had a 50% QBR, which to me, for a guy making the money that Kirk Cousins is making, and that they brought him to Atlanta to help them get to that next level, I think personally Arthur Blank should have thought that out, because they could. To me, they already have a quarterback on their roster that they drafted out of the University of Washington, right?
But it's nothing wrong with having at least a backup quarterback, though. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to go by just those stats alone, for that to be a backup quarterback is actually pretty decent. Now, if you were talking about a starting, then I won't give you that. But I mean, just like last season with the Dolphins, they went through 3 quarterbacks in 4 games. So there's definitely no reason. So it's definitely no reason not to have a decent backup quarterback.
Absolutely. And Michael Penix Jr., they actually drafted him out of Washington as the future for the franchise, and they ended up starting Michael Penix, around the end of the season, because Kirk Cousins just wasn't measuring up. He wasn't living up to expectations. And the guy has played for several different teams. He's played for the Washington football team. He's played for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is a scrub. Kirk Cousins is not a scrub. But what I am saying is, if you're going to invest that kind of money into a quarterback to bring him as a veteran to your franchise and hope that he could help develop Michael Penix, if he's interested in that, who knows? A lot of these veteran quarterbacks ain't even interested in helping these younger quarterbacks. And I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is like that, but what I am saying that they're going to guarantee this man $10 million, be on a roster that he still might get traded somewhere. So we'll kind of follow up with that. You got any input on that, Isaiah?
Yeah, because whenever you see a guy retain someone like that, it's something sentimental about it. I think Arthur Blank actually like him to do that.
Sure.
He like him because when you got somebody who you don't even know where they're gonna start, he's inconsistent, but you kind of like him. Just look at how long Jerry Jones kept Romo around. A long time, man.
That is a perfect example.
Anything, man. So that's probably what's happening.
Nothing. Just as bad as Dak Prescott.
Nothing.
Just a very average quarterback.
Yep. So that's what could be happening.
Well, a lot of these franchises, especially the coaches, they develop a sentimental connection with some players, like Don Shula for the Dolphins.
Quarterback.
When we were growing up, Don Strock stayed on the roster forever. I don't know how long Don Strock.
Let me tell you the difference between Don Strock. He was a player's coach, man. I mean, he was a player coach, man. He would write all those stats down. That's what was dealing with him. And then when you called him, he didn't. You didn't slack off. If he ever had to play, you won't fall off. He would go in and produce what he had to do.
Yeah.
But he stayed on there as just a backup for years and years and years, man. So it wasn't like he was just on the payroll for nothing. He was up there doing something that they actually liked.
It looks
so
like
when you
Don
called
Strock
on him,
was drafted in 1973. I'm looking at it right now. He was drafted in the 5th round. Yes. It says here that the Miami Dolphins drafted Don Strock in the 5th round, 111th overall in the 1973 draft. So,
no, he was on there that long.
I didn't know he was that either. I mean, because if you think about it, mean, he played a long time. And Don Strock's a classy guy. I mean, he was a good athlete. And like you say, when they needed him.
Sound like Udonis Haslem.
True. True.
He almost was like Haslam. Yeah, he was almost like Haslam. Yeah.
I want to say he played over, I'm not going to guarantee, but it looks like he played for the Dolphins from 1973 to 1987. Then he played for the Browns in 1988. And then he played for the Indianapolis Colts in 1989. And then he retired and became a coach.
Damn, he played long enough to get so.
You've reached the end of another episode of the DC Stewart Sports Talk podcast. Be sure to connect with us at Facebook and Twitter.com. Your voice is important, so head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Catch our next episode.